What's talking? That's right, me. Welcome to another video. In this video I am gonna compare Japan and the Netherlands on a few subjects and see which one is the better country. The subjects will be history, culture, food, criminality, and more. So let's dive in. So let's start with Japan. Japan was founded in the 7th century by a guy called Jimmu, not Jimmy. But the total core of its history is before that. It started with Japan deciding to become something, so they basically went to China to steal their culture so they could finally have one. They got their writing, religion, and even government system from China. And after this, it already gets annoying. But to summarize it, there are 4 big boy clans who are going sicko mode on each other. And while that's happening, Japan is getting really pissed off that they still haven't conquered the entire island. And because the enemies in the north are too powerful on their strong horses, Japan did what it did best and just copied that tactic. But they called them samurai instead, just to be cool. These samurai had a leader called shogun. Now, one of these clans, Shogun, actually won in a war against another clan, and then the emperor called him shogunate, so basically he leveled up and also basically ruled the country. Later we have this clan called Hojo, who just loved Legends of Zelda so much that they had to use their logo on their units. But before Japan could get peace, these dumb bearded headed dudes called Mongols arrived, or well, kind of, because Japan was so Chad that they killed these fuckers with a typhoon, and then the Mongols tried to attack again and Japan just did the same move. But then these daimyo fuckers who were just shogun realized that hey, we own the land, so why don't we have the power instead? So this started a civil war, which was more just a race to the throne so that they could achieve shogun level 2. After this, some guy which name is annoying to pronounce became shogunate and Japan was finally won. But for some reason they predicted coronavirus centuries before it even happened, and because they are so good at copying, they just, like China, they just blocked their country off from the rest of the world, except for the glorious Dutch. Well, the VOC, who did trade with Japan, and oh boy did Japan discover some culture. They learned from so much science, they just skipped a few decades in research. And then the US basically introduced themselves and Japan was like fuck it, so then the US, Russia and UK could trade as well. They copied some more government and army stuff from them as well. Then when Japan had all this power, it wanted to spread its epicness, so it fucking takes over the entirety of Korea and also starts a war with Russia, which ended up in basically nothing. Then because the UK loves them so much, they get to conquer some islands as well, but it wasn't enough. So then Japan began to fight China and actually took over a lot of land from China, and then Adolf Hitler became such a simp that they made an alliance. Then they started surprising everyone by taking more land, but Japan was like, nah, this isn't fun enough, let's annoy the big dog. So they started a war with America, but America didn't like this, so they fucking nuked Japan twice, so that Japan could finally stop being such a fucking nuisance. Then Japan simped for America, copied some of their shit, and got a better economy. It all started with the Netherlands not being an actual country. The lowlands, existing of Luxembourg, Belgium and the Netherlands, was just scattered groups that didn't really feel a connection with each other. But then Karel, or Charles V, was like no, so he tried his very best to make it one state. Then he tried to centralize taxes, but it didn't work, so in 1531 he made the collateral councils, which was meant to be a strong controlling organ of all the land. Later his huge empire was left to his sons Philip II and Ferdinand. A big part of now the Netherlands wanted to be Protestant, but the Spanish, who were Catholic, were like nah. So the Beeldstorm happened, where angry Protestant people destroyed thousands of Catholic art because mad. Then the Netherlands started a war and won their independence, well, kind of. The Dutch trading companies realized that they were pretty good on water, so they made the VOC, which was pretty good in trade, especially slave trade. The VOC was just a strong trading company and also had monopoly on a lot of things. But the more interesting thing was that the VOC also had the right to start a war if it pleased, which meant that it was basically a waterboat nation. The VOC also started the world's first stock market, which is just one of the major things they did that form our economy today. The Dutch had so much money, so they started making dikes, which were basically water walls, and because of this, the Netherlands has way more land now, because they straight up created land out of water. Later the VOC was born, which was kind of like the VOC, but then it was less trading and just straight up pirate sea wars. The VOC was meant to just steal a lot from Spanish ships and fight a lot with them. This made them mega chats on the seas, and because of the VOC and VOC carrying their Dutch teammate, the Netherlands turned into a golden age. The Dutch had a lot of epic battles and on seas and just starting owning everyone in Europe with their economy. This made the Dutch basically rule the entire world with trade and made them very strong, but they weren't strong when it came to soldiers. So French conquered them on land and UK conquered them on seas, especially in Asia. Before this though, it also is kind of funny that modern Australia, New Zealand and even New York were originally from the Dutch. New Zealand is still named after Zeeland being a Dutch province. Then Napoleon just upgraded the Netherlands with some cool things like last names and street names and more. But then southern part of the Netherlands realized that they liked the French way more and were also Catholic, so they decided to be a country of its own, called Belgium. In the First World War, the Dutch stayed neutral, and in the Second, although fighting hard, they got completely destroyed by Nazi Germany, and one of their cities, Rotterdam, got bombed to shreds. But later the Netherlands got saved and gained independence once more. Even though the Dutch had so many connections into a lot of events in European history and has made a lot of standards for economics today and basically earns the title of sea gods with just everything they have done on water, I do think that the history of Japan is just a bit more fun, and Japan has fought way more interesting battles than the Netherlands, I think at least. Japan wins this round. The Netherlands has artists like Vincent van Gogh and Rembrandt van Rijn, and I gotta say their paintings are very sexy. Overall, Dutch art I don't have much with, but there are some good paintings out there. I can't say the same for Dutch music though. First Dutch music was just old man singing, and it was pretty decent I guess, but now it has evolved into this retarded weird hip hop youth rap bullshit, and it's disgusting. The Dutch have singers like Boef or Famke Louise who you have never heard, and I advise that you keep it that way. The Dutch language is not very good. It's kinda just shittier German, although because it looks a lot like each other, Dutch people and Germans can communicate quite easily, and even though our language is hard to learn and kind of ass, the Dutch are very famous for knowing more than one language, that language being English most of the time. I don't know a single Dutch person who can't speak English. Japanese art is a way more colorful and drawn and unrealistic, which I prefer way more to be honest. Now when it comes to Japanese art, I think most people think about anime, and although most animes look the same, it can be very beautiful. The Japanese have clearly mastered their form of art, and even in Japan, art is all around you. Anime is a big thing in Japan and for Japan, and they even have some very interesting art called hentai. To Japanese music, it's a big hit or miss for me. The thing is that Japanese language is kind of loud and sounds a lot of times like an undeveloped baby trying to talk. And even when they talk serious or mad, I just can't take them seriously because it sounds so goofy. This makes a lot of their songs a bit too irritating and loud for me, but I gotta say there are some sexy slappers in there though. Like goddamn, some anime intros are just too good to miss. That's all I'm saying. Even though I do dislike the Japanese language and music in some ways, I think Japan wins the culture round. I haven't even talked about their ways of respect and belief, but Japan is a culture powerhouse, and then this subject will be a bit too long. Aside from the Viking countries, the Netherlands is probably the country with the most overall civilian happiness in the world. And I mean that as a Dutch person myself. I can understand why. We have very good government and a lot of freedom and a lot of rights as a civilian, which is pretty great. We have very good overall internet and Wi-Fi, which makes sure that already all the introverts are happy. When it comes to Japan though, Jesus Christ, while the Netherlands are vibing in the top 5 most of the times, Japan is all the way in the top 50/60 most of the times. The only countries lower than Japan are mostly third world countries, and they have a more logical reason to be unhappy. So, Japan, a country with a decent amount of money, why would everyone have so many sad boy hours? Well, it's because the civil rights suck ass. Even though Japan doesn't have that many cases of depression and actually lower than the Netherlands, they do have a way higher suicide rate, which means that it's probably just more the case that less people go to a therapist in Japan than the Netherlands, and that's why less are tested with depression. And to be a bit more big brain, this is probably also the reason why Japan is so colorful and energetic from the outside, like anime, because everyone in the inside wants that happiness. I mean, why do you think so many teens are depressed that watch anime? So yeah, I think it's pretty easy to say that the Netherlands wins this round. The Netherlands is very famous for its naval combat, but also on land the Netherlands have introduced some new war tactics that have been very important for the centuries, like the Dutch discipline. The Netherlands have a military at about 48,000. Maurits van Oranje was a very good general who destroyed a lot of Spaniards in the 80-year war with his tactics, and the Dutch won that war. The Netherlands also for a time had the best naval power and control. One of the best admirals of all time, Michiel de Ruyter, protected the Netherlands from a lot of English shankers. Japan doesn't have a very big military these days, reaching at about 317,000 personnel, but they did always have a strong military. The Second Sino-Japanese War, if I think that is how you pronounce it, is probably one of the most famous Japanese battles. In this battle, they owned China to its core and controlled the China war industry. The samurai is probably the biggest weeb joke of all time. Samurai weren't honorable soldiers with katanas, but more annoying brats who used mostly bows and later guns, who sometimes killed random people and killed dogs for sport. A lot of samurai also have not really used honor and more just betrayed their masters or other for their own gain. Although even with those things, Japan is still very strong on honor and following orders. Their soldiers die for their country a lot faster than the Dutch. The Japanese don't give up and have to keep fighting a lot of times, which makes them very strong and dangerous in battle. Overall, I think Japan wins when it comes to war, but I think that also has to do with the fact that they fought way more. The Dutch have defended way more, and when they did fight, most of the time they fought hard. So it's a close one, but I think Japan wins this one. Human rights violations could be described as Human Rights Career says it. The document outlines the human rights that all people are entitled to, such as freedom from torture, freedom of expression, and the right to seek asylum. When those rights aren't protected or blatantly disregarded, they are violated. The document being the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. I mean, obviously Japan has done way more human rights violations than the Netherlands. You can search that up yourself. The Netherlands has way better rights for their civilians in basically everything. This means that Japan is obviously a way bigger champ than the Netherlands because they just don't care. And therefore, I think it's clear that Japan wins this one. It's important in a country for people to fuck as fast as possible so that they aren't smart enough to realize that having kids is not a fun life. The age of consent in the Netherlands is 16 and in Japan is 13, which that Japan is obviously superior. This also partly the reason why so many people there haven't complained about their censored porn, because they get to fuck fast anyway. Before I say which one I think is better, I'm gonna let you listen to both of them for 30 seconds each. Now I think the Dutch one is a bit more energetic and just has a better groove. It also changes more than the Japanese one, therefore the Netherlands wins this one. Japan has a lot of civilians, and especially in cities like Tokyo, which means it's very hard to travel. Or, you would think. Japan is the best when it comes to traveling with their trains. They're fast, they are good connected, and there are a lot of close access points. This makes it easy to travel also in Japan itself. The roads are also pretty decent. The infrastructure in the Netherlands is also very good. The Netherlands doesn't have one super good way of traveling, but a lot of decent good ways to travel. The roads, the bicycle paths and the trains blend together very nicely and are very artistically well designed. You can get everywhere pretty fast by foot, by train, bicycle and car. This one is very hard because Japan has one very good way to travel around, but it has so many civilians that cars and bicycles can be hard. The Netherlands has every way pretty good, but you can't be everywhere as fast. I think the Netherlands wins this one because it's just better in connections and for every kind of transport. Japanese food like sushi, soba and ramen are just the shit. So much Japanese food is just tasty as fuck and also pretty healthy aside from the excessive candy that they have. So when I did research, I found out that a lot of very good food that I eat is surprisingly Dutch, like pancakes, hagelslag, bami goerang, satay, and even apple pie. This one was harder than I thought, but I think that Japan wins this one because Japanese food quality is just on another level. And it's also very healthy, but I do recommend to anyone who hasn't tried any Dutch meal that they eat it because it's goddamn good. So this one was also harder than I thought because crime rate also has to do with how much is reported, and Japan isn't really a country I trust with that. So huge disclaimer, this shit is probably not true what I'm about to say when it comes to criminality in Japan and the Netherlands. To say it fast, from what I know, the Netherlands seems to have a lot of crime but very little crimes like drug trade and well just drugs related stuff, and Japan has a lot of crime and it's pretty bad crimes like corruption and people getting killed. So I think, just on my gut and the little I know, that the Netherlands wins this one. So, if you didn't know, this is not very much talked about, but from research, I think Japan is actually the most racist country in the world. Because countries like America have more violent racists and bigger problems, but in Japan, every goddamn person is at least a little racist. Japan also has no rights when it comes to sexuality or race. This makes their constitution fucking shit. So yeah, with their racism, the Japanese aren't very friendly to outsiders and don't really respect them in general. This is also seen in different aspects in their culture. The Netherlands, on the other hand, is probably the most friendly country in the fucking world when it comes to difference or just immigrants. We have a lot of human rights that protect against racism, sexism, and atheism. The Netherlands has collected so many immigrants, it's insane. Our whole culture has changed because of it. No joke, the personality of Netherlands is just that we accept everyone. So I think it's safe to say that the Netherlands wins this one. So now let's reveal the final score. Japan ends with a score of 6. And the Netherlands ends with a score of 5. This means that Japan wins this battle by a close shot. Hi guys, I hope you guys liked the video. If you did, leave a like, I would really appreciate it. This video took a long time to make, but I did enjoy it a lot. So if you guys have any ideas for which other countries I should cover or just other videos ideas, leave them in the comments, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.